This Saturday is the anniversary of when Tawnya first went missing. We hope revisiting the murder will help solve the crime. I've spent months talking with investigators working this case. Tonight, her family questions whether enough is being done.
We're talking December 7th, 1996.
It's a day forever etched in Lori Knight's mind.
It'll be 23 years.
A memory as clear as the words etched on her daughter's grave. And as permanent as the picture on her arm.
I got her tattoo, so I carry her with me all the time.
Today, Tawnya Knight would be 38.
She was the type, if you were down, she could just start talking and you forgot about your troubles.
Instead, her life ended at 15. Tawnya had just moved back to Spring Hill, Kansas. A few years before that, she was with her mom in Arizona. On December 8th, her dad, Frank, called Lori, saying Tawnya went to a party but never came home.
I started panicking.
Lori says it wasn't like Tawnya. She always checked in and was always on time. Lori says she told that to police, but they listed Tawnya as a runaway.
For law enforcement to automatically assume a teenager is a runaway, that's wrong. You know, because the parents know their kids better than the authorities. She would have taken her makeup, she would have taken clothes and money. None of that was taken.
For 6 months, her family held on to hope. But in June 1997, a farmer tending to his field came across a skull.
The body that they had found was Tanya's.
It was right near a cemetery just blocks from their home where she lived with her dad.
I think the hardest thing is to knowing she was that close for this long. And we couldn't find her.
It almost makes you sick at your stomach.
The Johnson County Sheriff's Office was one of several agencies working the case.
If you would have found the body 6 days later, this would be a whole different story, and I may not even be sitting here.
Whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
Whole different ballgame.
Do you think about that often?
All the time.
Sheriff Calvin Hayden says the decision to call Tawnya a runaway was a product of the times. They didn't have technology or evidence to prove anything else.
Those are lessons learned.
That decision has brought us to where we are today. No suspects publicly named, no charges, no justice for the family of Tawnya Knight. The Sheriff's Office says they have 2 people in mind, but they can't say anything more.
Any eyes on this case that can see something we've missed or something that's pertinent, we'll use anybody we can.
The only thing I know is somebody took her life. And they need to pay.
Lori says 23 years later, that payment is long overdue. She agreed to talk because she has concerns about where the case sits today.
The first detective to get on the case was Scott Atwell. He never gave up. He was working that case every chance he got. Since Scott retired, it was like the Johnson County Sheriff's Department just put it on a shelf.
I tracked down Detective Atwell. He says he has concerns too. He says he went to dinner with Sheriff Hayden recently and claims the sheriff said this.
Sheriff Hayden looks up and said, well, we don't even know that it's a homicide. And I'm looking at him like, I really can't believe that you just said that.
How do you say you rule out homicide? Those are questions I'd like to know from, I'd like to know the answer to that.
How should the family feel when they hear that?
Well, I'm sure they're probably devastated. If he doesn't think it's a homicide, maybe rank and file below him, it will carry that on and say, okay, it's not a homicide, let's don't worry about it, let's move on.
Did you say that?
I don't think I said it wasn't a homicide.
Okay.
We have a coroner, and here's the problem with this. When you've got bones that are 6 months old, it's very difficult to determine that, the cause of death.
Sheriff Hayden says Tanya's body was severely decomposed. It sat in a field through 6 months of cold winter and wet spring. But he insists he's never strayed from investigating it as a homicide.
It is still a priority. We are going to put more resources into this case in the near future.
Sheriff Hayden tells me in the new year he's bringing in 3 retired homicide detectives to review Tanya's case. He hopes fresh eyes will shed new light.
And that's how you solve a case.
In the meantime, Lori has hired a private investigator to piece together her daughter's final night. and the high school drama that he says cost her life.
She had no idea that they were this mad at her.
So you believe the altercation happened right here?
Yes. 2 people carried her. They came up here to this fence right here.
That investigator is now working with police. Lori also started a Facebook page to raise awareness.
We've posted a lot of pictures. We've posted a lot of different articles.
I admire their commitment and their courage, and I don't think there's any door they haven't knocked on to try to bring this case to the forefront, and we're listening.
Lori hopes in year 23, she'll finally be able to do what that Facebook page says, find justice for Tawnya Knight.
I tell her that we're never giving up, you know, never will. And I've told her that we will get justice for her.
And that brings us to the next part of this story. Tonight at 10 o'clock, I team up with that private investigator. We're going to take you to that crime scene and share new information uncovered. We'll also explain what recently happened that could make it even harder to solve. Joe Chiodo, KCTV5 News.